the AGT champion and winner of $1 million is Richard Goodall!
This is Alicia Daniels, reporting on a story that's as unbelievable as it is inspiring. If someone had walked up to Richard Goodall 8 months ago and told him he'd soon be a millionaire, standing under a rain of confetti on national television, he probably would have laughed and gone back to sweeping the hallways of West Vigo Middle School. But on September 24, 2024, the world watched in awe as this humble janitor from Terre Haute, Indiana, broke down in tears, crowned the winner of America's Got Talent, and handed a check for $1 million. But his story didn't start with fame, and it didn't end with the trophy. Behind that voice that moved millions lies a life shaped by heartbreak, perseverance, and quiet resilience. A school janitor who once sang just to keep his spirit alive would go on to melt the hearts of millions, not just with his voice, but with the raw, unfiltered truth of his journey. And now, with the cameras off and the stage lights dimmed, one question remains: what really happened to Richard Goodall after the standing ovations stopped? Stay with us, because this story is more than a viral moment, it's a lifetime in the making. Long before the glittering confetti and the $1 million prize, Richard Goodall's world was made up of mop buckets, school hallways, and the quiet town of Terre Haute, Indiana. Born in 1969 into a modest working-class family, Richard was the eldest of several siblings, forced to grow up too fast. With both parents holding down multiple jobs just to keep the lights on, love and affection were often in short supply. At a young age, Richard took on the role of protector, helping raise his younger siblings while struggling to keep up in school. He later confessed in an interview, "I was never the smartest kid in the room. My mind was always wandering elsewhere. But even amidst the noise of hardship, one sound always brought him peace: music." Long before the world ever heard him sing, Richard found comfort in the raw power of classic rock. He didn't just listen, he absorbed it. Those moments with his cassette player were more than escapes, they were lifelines. After graduating high school, the odds weren't in his favor. He couldn't afford college right away, and when he finally managed to enroll after saving from odd jobs, the experience left him feeling lost and out of place. Eventually, he dropped out, unsure of where life would take him. Where he landed was perhaps the last place anyone would expect: a middle school janitor. At West Vigo Middle School, Richard found more than just employment, he found peace. Day in and day out, he scrubbed floors and hauled trash, never once complaining. While others might see it as a dead end, he embraced it. Why? Because he was around kids, the kind he always wanted to protect. Some brought him small gifts like candy bars, unaware he couldn't eat them due to his blood sugar, but he cherished the gesture, smiling and saying, "That's the innocence of a child." But this quiet janitor wasn't just mopping up after middle schoolers. Every now and then, from the echoing hallways of West Vigo came a voice, soulful, pure, full of emotion. His colleagues heard it, the students heard it, yet no one, not even Richard, could imagine where that voice would take him. But that voice was about to echo far beyond Indiana. Richard Goodall's story didn't unfold under spotlights or studio mics. It started under flickering fluorescent lights and the scent of floor wax. At West Vigo Middle School in Terre Haute, Indiana, he wasn't known as a singer. He was Mr. Richard, the janitor, the guy who showed up early, stayed late, and always had a smile on his face, even when no one was watching. For over 2 decades, Richard swept floors, hauled trash, and unclogged sinks with quiet pride. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but for him it meant something. "The kids," he once said, "are the best part of my day." That sentiment wasn't lost on the students either. They adored him. Some would bring him small gifts like a candy bar tucked into a paper napkin, never realizing he couldn't eat them due to his blood sugar. Still, he smiled and thanked them every time. "It's the thought that counts," he'd say, and he meant it. But beneath the surface of this quiet life was a daily ritual few noticed. Richard sang. While wiping down cafeteria tables or pushing his mop cart through empty hallways, his voice would echo softly, rising from within like a secret too big to hold. Teachers heard it. So did the students. One staff member even encouraged him to create a YouTube channel. Richard declined with a chuckle, saying, "I think I'm a little too old for that kind of thing." He wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't chasing anything. For Richard, singing was therapy, a refuge. Music had been with him since childhood, a safe place when the world felt uncertain. It wasn't for applause, it was for survival. He'd been hurt, but he kept singing. He'd felt lost, but his voice never wavered. He never bragged, never asked for more. He just kept showing up, quietly, humbly, every single day. What no one realized then was that those echoes in the hallway, they were rehearsals for something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. But life, as it often does, had other plans, and they would bring Richard to his knees before lifting him up again. Before America ever knew his name, Richard Goodall faced a battle that would change him forever, not on a stage, but in a hospital room. Her name was Patricia, though everyone called her Patty. She wasn't just Richard's wife. She was his anchor, his best friend, the melody that played softly in the background of his life. They married in 1995 and built a life of quiet, steady devotion, two people who didn't need much, as long as they had each other. But in late 2020, the diagnosis came: cancer. Aggressive, late stage. It was the kind of news that stops the world cold, and for Richard, it did. He stayed by Patty's side through every appointment, every late-night scare, every fading breath. They hoped, they prayed. But by May of 2021, the fight was over. Patty was gone. For the man known for singing in school hallways and small-town bars, there was now only silence. The voice that once lifted spirits simply vanished. "I couldn't sing," Richard would later admit. "I couldn't even breathe right." His co-workers noticed the change. So did his bandmates, but no one pushed him. Everyone knew he wasn't just mourning a person, he was mourning part of himself. The days became mechanical. Wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. There was no music, no laughter, just the quiet ache of absence. Even brewing a pot of coffee, a task Patty used to do, was enough to bring tears to his eyes. But healing has a rhythm of its own, and slowly, something stirred inside him. One evening, almost without thinking, he returned to a familiar bar where he used to perform with his band, Menopause. Someone handed him a microphone, and without a word, he began to sing. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't powerful, but it was real. "I sang through the grief," he said later. "I didn't know what else to do." That night marked a turning point, not a comeback, but a beginning. The crowd didn't just hear a song, they witnessed a man choosing to keep going, and somewhere out there something or someone was waiting to remind him that life wasn't done surprising him yet. When it seemed like life had taken everything from Richard Goodall, fate slipped in through the least expected place: a Facebook notification. It started simply enough. One day, as he was checking the Facebook page for his old band Menopause, Richard noticed a new follower. Her name was Angela Varnovan. She wasn't a stranger for long. A quick hello turned into a warm conversation. That conversation turned into daily messages, and those messages, they quickly grew into something neither of them had planned. Angela had come across one of the band's old performance clips online, and had been moved by the emotion in Richard's voice. She said his songs made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. For Richard, still grieving the loss of Patty, it was like hearing music again for the first time. They talked about everything: life, love, loss, and hope. There was no pressure, no pretending, just two people who had known heartbreak and still had the courage to feel something again. Richard later described it as finding color after living in black and white. By the end of 2022, the two were inseparable. They hadn't just fallen in love, they'd built something new out of the broken pieces of their pasts. On New Year's Day 2023, Richard did something he never thought he'd do again. He got down on one knee and proposed. Angela said yes. It was a quiet moment. No cameras, no headlines, just two hearts choosing hope. But neither Richard nor Angela had any idea just how public their journey was about to become. Because as 2023 unfolded, the voice that had once been confined to janitor closets and barroom stages was about to go viral. And what sparked it wasn't a stage or a spotlight, it was a school gym full of screaming middle schoolers. It was supposed to be just another school event. In early May of 2023, West Vigo Middle School hosted a student appreciation assembly. Administrators were looking to close the semester on a high note, and someone had a simple idea: let's ask Mr. Richard to sing. It wasn't a performance meant for the world, just a heartfelt gesture from the beloved janitor who'd serenaded the halls for years. Richard agreed, a little hesitant, but always happy to lift spirits. He chose Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, his personal anthem and longtime favorite. Students packed into the gymnasium, chatting and scrolling on their phones, expecting a fun, forgettable school day detour. And then Richard opened his mouth. What followed was pure magic. His voice raw, soaring, achingly soulful, sliced through the noise like a lightning bolt. The gym fell silent, then erupted. Students jumped to their feet, phones held high, capturing every second. By the time he belted the final chorus, the applause was deafening. It wasn't just appreciation, it was awe. Several students uploaded their clips to TikTok that afternoon. Within 24 hours, the videos had racked up millions of views. Headlines began to circulate. Singing janitor stuns the internet. Hidden star in Terre Haute Middle School. Janitor's voice goes viral. Richard didn't understand the fuss at first. "I thought they were just being nice," he said in a local interview, but the world had already decided. He wasn't just a janitor anymore, he was a viral sensation. Offers started pouring in, interviews, podcast requests, even a call from a local record label. But Richard stayed grounded. "I've loved, I've lost, and I've found love again. I'm not in a rush to change what makes me happy," he wrote in a Facebook post. Still, one of his bandmates saw something bigger. "This is your moment," they told him. And just like that, with Angela's hand in his, and the encouragement of an entire town behind him, Richard made a decision that would flip his quiet world upside down. He signed up to audition for America's Got Talent. But no one, not even Richard, was ready for what would happen once he stepped onto that stage. On May 28, 2024, a man in a plain button-down shirt and worn-in jeans stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage. His name was Richard Goodall. To the judges and audience, he looked like someone's friendly neighbor, humble, quiet, unassuming. No one expected what was about to happen. He introduced himself simply. No dramatic backstory, no performance gimmicks. When asked what he would sing, Richard smiled gently and said, "Don't Stop Believin'," the same song that had started it all in that school gym months earlier. The music began, and within seconds, the entire room shifted. His voice, powerful, emotional, filled with grit and soul, echoed through the auditorium with such raw vulnerability that the audience sat stunned. Then they stood, one by one. People rose to their feet, swept up in the tidal wave of Richard's vocals. He didn't just sing the song, he lived it. Every lyric carried the weight of a man who'd known heartbreak, held on to hope, and somehow made it to that stage. Judge Heidi Klum didn't hesitate. With tears in her eyes, she slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained down as the crowd erupted, chanting his name. Richard looked stunned, overwhelmed, wiping away tears while Simon Cowell leaned into his mic and said, "You, sir, are my hero." America had just discovered its unlikely champion. Over the following weeks, Richard's performances only intensified. In the live rounds, he delivered Michael Bolton's "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?" with haunting clarity. He turned the semi-finals into a rock concert with Eye of the Tiger, commanding the stage with a presence that belied his lack of formal training. And when it came time for the finale, Richard made a bold choice, another Journey anthem, Faithfully. "I started with Journey," he told reporters later, "and I wanted to end with Journey." He sang the last note with a trembling voice, his eyes scanning the audience, where hundreds waved their phones, singing with him. Howie Mandel leaned in and said what everyone was already thinking. "I think you just sang yourself $1 million. But even as the applause faded and the lights dimmed, Richard didn't head straight for red carpets or recording contracts. He had a wedding to attend, and that was the twist no one saw coming. In the final week of America's Got Talent Season 19, while millions were casting votes and speculation swirled online about who would take the crown, Richard Goodall was quietly preparing for something else, something even more personal than national recognition. On September 18, 2024, just 6 days before the AGT finale, Richard exchanged vows with Angela Vanavan, the woman who had restored his belief in love after loss. Their wedding wasn't streamed live or turned into a publicity event. It wasn't even widely announced. It was private, heartfelt and deliberate, just like everything Richard does. Close friends, family, and a few members of the AGT community attended the intimate ceremony. One witness described it as a moment frozen in time, two people who had both been broken, choosing to build something unshakable together. The reception was modest, but the joy was overwhelming. Even the staff whispered how surreal it was. The man America was falling in love with was tying the knot just days before potentially winning it all. The news didn't break until after the finale, but when it did, fans went wild. Comment sections flooded with congratulations. Headlines read, "AGT finalist pulls off secret wedding before big win," and "Richard Goodall wins hearts and a wife." The story wasn't just about talent anymore. It was about love, timing and destiny aligning in one incredible week. And then, just 6 days after becoming a husband, Richard stood under the blazing lights of the AGT stage, waiting for a verdict that would change his life again. When host Terry Crews finally announced his name as the winner of season 19, the room exploded, the tears flowed. Angela ran into his arms. It wasn't just confetti, it was closure, it was redemption, it was the end of one journey and the beginning of another. He had done it. Richard Goodall, the middle school janitor who once sang alone in empty hallways, had just become a millionaire and a married man in the same week. But what he chose to do after that may be the most surprising part of all. You'd think that after winning a national competition and pocketing $1 million prize, Richard Goodall would have packed his bags for Hollywood, but that's not what happened. Instead, just days after being crowned the season 19 champion of America's Got Talent, Richard did something few could believe. He returned home to Terre Haute, Indiana, and went straight back to work as a janitor at West Vigo Middle School. Yes, really, there was no high-end entourage, no press tour, no glamorous relocation. What awaited him instead was something far more touching, a hero's welcome. At the local airport, supporters crowded the terminal with handmade signs, cheering as Richard arrived. His hometown mayor declared a city-wide celebration and presented him with the symbolic key to the city. His return to the school sparked a pep rally like no other, with students chanting his name and faculty in tears. To the town, he wasn't just a TV star, he was family. One student described him as our Mr. Richard, only now everyone else knows how special he is too. Still, his decision raised eyebrows across the internet. Some fans were amazed by his humility, others were baffled. Why go back to janitorial work when doors in the music industry were wide open? Comment threads debated the choice relentlessly. Was it admirable modesty, or a missed opportunity? When asked, Richard offered a calm explanation. "I'm not in a hurry to change the life I love. I still get to sing. I still get to see the kids. If the right opportunity comes, I'll know." That quiet confidence didn't go unnoticed. In fact, it caught the attention of country star Walker Hayes, who had followed Richard's journey from the start. Touched by Richard's story and reminded of his own beginnings, Hayes surprised him with a gift, a brand new car. "When I was starting out," Hayes explained, "someone gave me a shot, a ride. I figured it was time to pay it forward." Richard's return to simplicity wasn't about rejecting fame, it was about staying grounded. He still performs, he still sings, but he does it on his terms. No agents, no spotlight pressure, just a man doing what he loves in the town that never stopped believing in him. But with $1 million and a nation's attention, staying grounded is only half the story. What about the money? The offers, the rumors, and that mysterious new project people are whispering about? Let's dig deeper. Winning America's Got Talent comes with a headline-grabbing promise: $1 million. But as many fans are now discovering, that prize isn't as straightforward as it sounds. Behind the scenes, AGT winners are given two options. Take the full $1 million in the form of a 40-year annuity at around $25,000 per year, or opt for a reduced lump sum, typically in the range of $300,000 to $350,000 before taxes. Richard Goodall, ever the pragmatist, reportedly chose the lump sum, quietly, carefully, and without making a spectacle of it. So what did he do with the money? Well, according to several local reports, Richard didn't go on a shopping spree or buy a mansion. Instead, he met with a financial advisor in Indianapolis and focused on securing his family's future. Sources close to him say he placed a portion into a trust for his grandchildren, another into a charitable fund, and kept the rest tucked away. "I've never needed much," he told a hometown paper. "I'm just trying to make sure no one around me ever goes without." But that hasn't stopped the internet rumor mill from spinning. One whisper claims that Richard is quietly working on a debut album, described as a genre-bending blend of gospel rock and storytelling ballads, set to release later this year. Another unconfirmed report suggests that Zac Efron's team reached out for early talks about a potential biopic, inspired by Richard's underdog journey. Neither story has been officially confirmed, but fans are buzzing. More curious still are the rumors that Simon Cowell himself is keeping an eye on Richard, reportedly exploring production support through his entertainment company. Again, no formal announcements, but the speculation continues to swirl. There's also been growing debate online: is Richard's continued janitorial work part of a calculated image strategy? Some social media critics call it manufactured modesty, while others passionately defend his sincerity. To his credit, Richard addresses these rumors the way he's handled everything else, with grace and good humor. "I can't stop people from talking," he said in a brief Facebook Live appearance, "but what matters most to me is that I wake up every day happy, doing what I love, surrounded by people I care about." Whether his next move is another viral song, a full album, or something entirely unexpected, one thing is certain: Richard Goodall's story isn't finished. And if the quiet rumblings in the industry are any indication, the janitor from Terre Haute may still have one more surprise left in him. Richard Goodall's journey wasn't scripted, it wasn't produced in a studio or engineered for social media virality, it was real. A man who swept hallways, buried his wife, fell in love again, and dared to sing his truth, first in a middle school gym, then on one of the biggest stages in the world. He didn't fit the mold of a superstar, he didn't have a stylist or a media coach. He had a mop, a melody, and a story that resonated in the hearts of millions. And perhaps that's why America chose him. From the moment his voice echoed on national television, to the day he walked back through the school doors he once cleaned, Richard reminded us all of something we often forget in the age of fast fame and curated perfection: that greatness doesn't always wear a spotlight. Sometimes, it wears work boots and sings when no one's watching. His story isn't just about winning America's Got Talent, it's about what happens after the applause, how you carry your values when the cameras turn off, how you love your people, how you stay rooted in a world desperate to pull you upward. So the question isn't, why did Richard go back to being a janitor? The real question is, why wouldn't he? In a world full of performers chasing fame, Richard Goodall reminded us what it looks like when someone sings from the soul, not for the spotlight, but for the healing. And now, the story is yours. What do you think? Was returning to the school a powerful statement, or a missed opportunity? Is Richard's greatest act still ahead? Let us know in the comments. And if his story moved you, like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere out there, another janitor might be humming a song that could change the world. This is Alicia Daniels, signing off. Until next time, keep listening for the voices no one's heard yet. This video is for entertainment and informational purposes only. While it is based on real events and public appearances, certain segments include opinions, interpretations, and unverified reports that are clearly framed as speculation. We do not claim to have insider knowledge, and all rumors mentioned are presented respectfully, and without intent to mislead or defame. All images, clips, and references are used under fair use for commentary, education, and storytelling. Viewer discretion is advised when engaging with sensitive topics.